Ian Lindsay of Lindsay and Associates has played an active role in the local community since 1979. He has been with RE/MAX, Vancouver Island's most advanced real estate business network, since 1996, marketing and selling residential, rural, strata, recreational, investment, and project development real estate. You'll find true real estate professionals at ianlindsay.ca.
You're listening to Non-Partisan Hacks, the podcast about good government from the local level on up. I'm Sean Wood, City Councillor with the City of Parksville and 2026 mayoral candidate.
And I'm Joel Grenz, also a City of Parksville Councillor. If you're watching on YouTube, welcome. And if you haven't just subscribed yet, now's your chance. You can also find all of our other episodes on nonpartisanhacks.com, which you'll want to do because this episode is going to be awesome and the other ones are too.
Today we're getting into something that lands in every homeowner's mailbox every spring and causes immediate anxiety: the property tax bill.
And we're going to use Parksville to discuss this a bit because that's where we're elected, but property taxes, the structure, the line items, why your bill can jump, that applies pretty much everywhere in Canada.
So whether you're in BC or Ontario or anywhere in between, stick with us. This one's going to make sense of something that really shouldn't be this confusing.
And we'll get into a specific question we hear a lot. Parksville raised taxes 5.8% this year, so why doesn't my bill go up 5.8%? Maybe it went up 12 or 13%. It's a fair question, and we're going to answer the question today.
Quick disclaimer before we dive in: the views we express here are our own and don't represent the City of Parksville or any other governing body. Two councillors talking shop, not officially taking a position.
There we go. And so here we are today on your lovely deck on a lovely day in late June. Thanks for hosting us on your deck, Sean. We may hear the odd lawnmower or leaf blower or something. So
airplane right now, actually.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. And maybe your chickens in the background. So
yeah, I don't know. They're pretty quiet right now.
They're pretty chill right now.
Yeah.
So the first thing we really want to dive into is the property bill that comes in the mail, property tax bill. Why does it look the way it does? What are all those different line items? It's like one big lump, but what is in that lump?
Yeah, the first thing to understand, and this trips people up constantly, is that your property tax bill isn't one tax from one government. It's a collection of levies from multiple different authorities, all rolled into a single invoice. Your municipality collects on behalf of everyone, but the money flows in a lot of different directions. And we're talking about a municipality. There are other orders of government. Here in BC, we have regional districts, and in other provinces, we have counties, and I think that probably covers it on the national side of things.
Yeah. Is there a thing, something other than counties, boroughs, or I don't know. In any case, there are definitely more than one organized or level of government and group trying to get money off of your property, and that's why it shows up in multiple lines on the property tax. You pay it once to one place, but it's multiple organizations that will get that money, and so maybe we'll kind of look through some of those in Parksville here and a BC property tax because you're going to have the general municipal tax, the school tax, the regional district hospital, regional hospital district, library, municipal finance authority, regional wastewater, and BC assessment authority. That's a bit of a mouthful. That all adds up to one bill. Yeah.
And while we dive in here, I mean, this isn't the most fun thing to talk about, but when it comes in the mail, if you actually look through all of these line items, kind of as boring and dry as it is, it'll help you understand all of the different agencies that are sending you a bill here. Joel and I are elected to the City of Parksville, and really there's only one line that we're actually responsible for. And so that's really important for you to understand that the people you talk to, whether they're councillors or someone else, say on the library board, or if they're part of your regional district or your county, those people sit there and they are responsible for those decisions that are made there. And so when you get your bill, take a look at it and you'll see all these broken down.
Yeah, and that's where it can actually get a little bit hazy or even more confusing, because if you vote for someone to be on your local council, they're going to affect probably, in the case of Parksville, I think it's around 46% of your property tax is the City of Parksville line. And then the remaining 54% is a bunch of other places. But your councillor may actually also have a say in those other line items. For example, I'm not appointed to the library, but the library board does also add a line to your property tax bill. And the library board is comprised of people who are drawn from local councils and regional districts across the library service area. So they are voting for an increase as well. It just doesn't make the news as much. I believe theirs might have been 8%. Ours was 5.8% in City of Parksville. Theirs went up 8%, I think. I say I think because it's not actually as widely publicized. And then the regional district also will increase property taxes, and you sit on the regional district board, so you have a vote at that table around what those property taxes are going to increase or stay the same or what's going to happen there. And as a member of the regional district board, you also, Sean, are on the hospital district board, which is raising money for capital projects related hospital in our region. Also raising your hand on what the property tax increase is going to be for that line item. But those roles are not directly voted by the citizens. So you didn't make it onto those boards because you're voted directly onto those boards. You made it onto those boards because you were appointed as a councillor. And
we're not sure how counties work. So really, we're just speaking to regional districts here in the province of BC with this one. And the regional district kind of model is a whole other podcast we can have sometime.
Yeah, maybe people are begging for that one for sure. So when people say the city raised my taxes, this is what usually makes it into the newspaper. That is the city's portion only. It's quite possible that a whole bunch of other lines on that tax bill went up, maybe even more than the city's, or maybe less. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we move on. But let's move on to the next item here, which is the assessment versus the rate. Sean, do you want to dig into this? Why are they? What's different between the assessment of your property value and the rate that you're going to pay on that property?
So, Joel, when I get my BC assessment, obviously other provinces have their own means of assessing, but if my assessment goes up 20%, that means I can expect my property taxes to also go up 20%, right?
Do we have sound effects for this?
No, we don't have any sound effects, but that is not how it works.
Yeah, so if your property your property value increased, congratulations. Generally speaking, property values are overall increasing year over year. This year in BC, we actually did see a decrease overall in the assessed values of properties across BC. The average, but that doesn't mean that yours didn't go up. And if yours went up and everyone else's in your community went down, guess what? You're going to actually be paying a lot more taxes because it's all proportional to what everyone else's property values. What happened to their property values?
Yeah, we hear this quite a bit when we get asked about our property taxes and assessment. The City of Parksville, we set a budget, and that amount of money is what it costs for us to deliver the services as a city to your property and to all the other properties that make up the City of Parksville. So we set the budget. That's the dollar amount that we need to fulfill that budget. We are going to get that dollar amount from property taxes. How we spread that dollar amount out is with the assessment. So if everybody's assessment goes up the exact same amount, then the pie of our budget will be split up depending on your assessed property value. If your assessment went up higher than average in the City of Parksville, then you're going to get a bit larger slice of the pie of the budget, billed to you.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
So basically, the best case scenario, really, if you want to have lower taxes on your property, is for your property value to not increase as much as everybody else's, because then you might actually end up with a lower than the overall increase that you have to pay for. So if the budget went, say, from 28 million to 30 million, that additional 2 million gets distributed across all the homeowners. And if your property value increased much more than everybody else's, then you will also be getting an increase higher than what the average increase would be.
And not only the increase gets distributed, but our entire budget does get distributed as well.
That's true. Fair point.
When I sat down with a guy, and you and I both have coffees with people when they ask for coffee. I think it's a great way to for people to interact and get to know us, and I think it's part of our job.
We'll be drinking a coffee anyway.
Yeah, we'll be drinking a coffee anyways. But his, the the person I'm thinking of, his assessment went up 7%, whereas the average City of Parksville property assessment only went up 2%. So his property, for whatever reason, BC assessment, it went up 5% higher than the average property. And so the dollar value of his property went up $60,000 more than last year, which if you're the owner of the property, you're probably pretty happy with that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that if you went to market with your property and tried to sell it today that you would get that amount. But people in the market looking for a home or looking to sell a home, realtors, they'll use that BC assessment as a bit of a benchmark. So his property went up $60,000 and his gross property tax bill, all of those different lines and orders of government and agencies that we were just talking about, his gross bill went up $750. So his assessment went up $60,000 and his gross property tax dollar amount was $750. And I asked him, I said, hey, so is it a good thing that your assessment went up $60,000? And he said, well, it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And it is, it was an honest answer. Yeah. It is an honest answer.
Yeah, when your BC assessment comes in the mail, you might be like, woohoo, my value of my property went up. My net worth now went up. And then you also see another line in the BC assessment paper that comes in the mail that gives you an average for your area. And if you're increasing at a higher average or higher amount than the average in that area, your property tax, double-edged sword. There's the other edge of that sword is that your property is now going to be taxed at a higher amount.
And, being elected to local government, Joel, we kind of want, if we're doing a good job, actually the assessments go up because there's a demand. When BC Assessment does their assessments at recent sales of similar properties to assess yours, there's a demand for your property. We're doing a good job. People want to live here. There's a demand. And I chatted with this guy and I kind of brought up Detroit. When Detroit saw a lot of its manufacturing for cars leave Detroit. Well, they had people leaving. There were less jobs. Detroit went bankrupt and property assessments went through the floor, and they would actually pay you to move in and buy a home for very low cost, and your property taxes were next to zero. But there was no demand to live in Detroit because there were no jobs, and they went bankrupt. There was not even a budget to keep the streetlights on. So if you want low assessments and low property taxes, Detroit was a great place to think of at that time. But we do, we're in a very a place where everybody wants to live, and we see assessments going up, which is great if you're in the market. It's not great if you don't own a home, because we see those property values going up. And this is what we juggle for non-market housing and workforce housing and all that stuff. But in this case, he saw his property assessment go up $60,000 and the gross property tax dollar amount went up $750. So actually, he's really in the black. He's doing great on the dollar side of things. But that doesn't mean, Joel, that people are liquid enough and have the cash to spend on that property tax amount.
Yeah, and that's the trick here about taxing properties. We do need to recognize that it is essentially a wealth tax. We're taxing people on not the flow of their money, but on the value of an asset. And that value can change all the time, which is why every year BC Assessment determines what that change is. And we don't do this with a lot of other things. We don't tax maybe cars based on their current value, or things in your home we don't see an inspector coming every year and looking at all do you have any jewelry that you acquired this year? And we're going to tax you on the value of that jewelry now. So we only do that, I think, with homes. I'm not sure if we do that on any other things. We don't tax people, for example, on their investment portfolio until they sell. Then you'll be paying a capital gains tax. But we also don't charge a capital gains tax in Canada on your primary residence because, well, maybe not because, but you are taxed all the way along while you're owning it on the value of that, which it's a tricky one because you do need to have income and cash flow in order to pay for that. And maybe if you don't, then you may be forced to sell in order to cover those property taxes. Now in BC, we do have an option of deferring your property taxes. So maybe we can kind of get into that a little bit, is this idea of deferring your property taxes, and BC has a program for that. Sean?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to the website for BC and you can see what the deferral program here is in BC. I think other provinces probably have similar programs. They might vary a little bit. Prior to this year's budget here in BC, you could defer your taxes, and when you sell your home, that's when those taxes will get paid
by you. So basically the province is going to pay your taxes to the municipality and everywhere else on your behalf. So you're basically borrowing money from the province
or from other taxpayers, I guess you could even you can even say. Before this year's budget, it was prime minus 2% was the loan that you're taking, and so most accountants would tell people to defer their taxes because you can make more money with your other money if you have other money, which will probably do better than prime minus 2. But after this year's budget, now it's prime plus 2, and it's compounded monthly from my understanding. And so that's a 4% difference, not getting into the compounded interest. So that's a big difference. But still, you can probably make more money if you have other investments than prime plus 2 compounded monthly. But it's still a decision you have to make. I don't defer my taxes. I feel like I want to, pay what I owe every year, even though it might not be the smartest thing to do.
Yeah, well, you need to be eligible. I think there are certain age limits and different factors that can set whether you can defer your property taxes. But yeah, essentially deferring your property taxes is really just borrowing money to pay your property taxes again, and that you don't have to pay back until you sell your home. So in a sense, it's almost like a homeowner's line of credit or a mortgage. Is pretty similar to that we don't pay it off until, except that you don't pay it off till you sell. Obviously mortgage you pay along the way. So it's whether that's a good idea for people to do or not is up to them, but it is a way to maybe soften the blow a little bit about when you get a $5,000 bill in the mail in the spring, and how are you going to pay for that? Well, some people are able to defer those property taxes, basically borrow those property taxes, and stay in their home, which is the idea, instead of having to maybe sell.
We probably have spoken about deferral enough. I did want to go back to the idea of taxing wealth versus more means or progressive means of taxing, which would be like based on your income. And so we all pay income tax based on our income. So the government can see, hey, you made this much, so you're in this tax bracket with this amount and this tax bracket with this amount. And then they tax you on your means to pay. And so property taxes are kind of classified as a regressive because it's not based on your means necessarily. It's based on unrealized gains that you haven't made yet. Really, until you sell your home, you haven't made those gains. You may not have the cash in the bank.
Could be a loss too, actually.
Could be a loss. Yeah. Real estate does a lot of crazy things depending on mortgage interest rates and a bunch of other stuff. And so I just wanted to mention progressive and regressive. And really our only means at the local government level is a regressive means of taxation, which is not necessarily based on your ability to pay, but more on unrealized gains.
Yeah, so let's now look at the line items. So who's responsible for what line on that property tax bill? So I think we mentioned earlier, there's the regional hospital district, the regional wastewater, the RDN, school tax. Sean, what can you tell us? You are the regional district rep. What should we know about some of those things?
Yeah, both of those are the two highest that we see on our local tax bill. They're both at about 27%. And those are both capital costs, which we see across the whole country, that capital infrastructure is very expensive. So if we start with the hospital stuff, I would tell people to pop back to listen to Donna Hayes, our podcast episode on that. Our regional general hospital here in Nanaimo is 60 years old, and it's desperately in need of a new patient tower and a catheterization lab. And it is not cheap to build a new patient tower and a cath lab. We're looking at about $1.8 billion at the last estimate.
Capital cost, yeah.
And so that's capital cost. And the way it works here in BC with regional districts minus metro is that we have to show as a regional district, approximately 170,000 people are in that kind of catchment, that we are preparing to pay 40% of that capital cost, and $800 million or whatever that number might work out to be, 40% of $1.8 billion. And to do that, we have to raise the property taxes for that amount. And so while that number is high, and on this one property tax bill that I have in front of me, it's about $500 for just that, we don't get a lot of pushback once we chat with people and explain to them that that's what the province needs to see from the hospital district so that we're serious about getting this built. Yeah. If we at the hospital district aren't raising property taxes to show that we're going to get to that 40% mark or $800 million, then the province is, then you kind of let the province off the hook, and they can oh, you guys aren't serious about your 40%, so why would we be serious about our 60%? And
not to mention the 60% is just the capital cost, because if they were to build a new hospital, and if we do get that patient tower and catheterization lab in our region, the province will be paying for the operating costs of those things. So the hiring of the doctors and nurses and support staff, et cetera, et cetera. And so that is really the ongoing cost of having that. But yes, we do at the local government level in much of our province, I'm not sure how it is elsewhere in the country, have to ante up with a significant chunk of the capital cost in order to see those services, hospital services, come to our area. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
So looking at the school tax, so that is actually another kind of provincial quote unquote responsibility that the local government is paying for, and that ends up on that property tax bill. There's another one. It's the school tax. And the school tax is also a provincial responsibility. The province pays for schools, but there is an item on our tax bills for our properties that is related to that. And that's the school tax, which is a fairly significant chunk as well, that property tax bill. And that is set by Victoria. It's not set by the local government. Not to get into the weeds on it, but the formula that is used to determine what that amount is has changed recently. And so often people say, oh, I want my property tax to go up kind of relative to CPI or inflation. That is not how the school tax is calculated any longer. And in fact, really very few of these lines are calculated that way. Just so people know, they're calculated more based on the actual budget of those items. So just something to flag. The City of Parksville, as we mentioned, that property tax went up 5.8%. That's only 46% or so of the total tax bill. And we talked a fair bit about BC assessment. Well, BC assessment actually shows up on your property tax bill because your property taxes pay
for them to assess your property.
For them to assess your property. Yeah, there you go. So next time when someone comes, you get your property tax bill and someone says, you raised my taxes 13%, even though you said it was only 5.8%, but it's gone up 13%. Well, it's unfortunately a little more complicated than that. We talked about the BC assessment part, but also all the other lines on that property tax bill are maybe someone else's department. And so we'll get into later and what you can maybe do about it to keep those taxes ideally as low as possible while still providing the services. But let's go into the homeowner grant, which is a way to, I guess, get a bit of a discount on your property tax bill. Sean, do you want to set this one up?
Not really. I was hoping that you knew more about the homeowner grant than I do. Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. Then thanks for the the pitch down the middle there. So actually, at the beginning of my term, I did bring forward a motion to AVICC, which is our local government organization, where we can bring resolutions that we can bring then to the province as a sort of common voice. And mine was about the homeowner grant. So every year in BC, you can apply as a homeowner for a homeowner grant that the province basically pays a chunk of your property tax bill for you. The thing is that grant amount has not changed, unlike all the other items where they go up every year, maybe relative to CPI, maybe not, but they do go up. The homeowner grant does not go up. So every year as your property taxes increase, your homeowner grant stays the same. So basically you're actually kind of eroding away the value of that homeowner grant. And I brought a motion to ask the province to adjust that amount every year. if they are actually concerned about the ability of people to pay their property taxes. The question is whether that is actually something that we want to be putting provincial taxes towards, is helping subsidize people's home ownership. It's a good question. I think this homeowner grant was brought in like the 1950s or something. So it's been around for a long time. My guess is that the province has basically made a decision to kind of let it just slowly be eroded away over time and not give any more money towards that. But in the big picture of all this, we have seen that the pressure on property tax as a source of revenue keeps going up. The province is putting more responsibility on local governments, who then have to charge more for those services on that property tax. The school taxes are increasing. The expectations around funding major projects is increasing. So more and more pressure is going on homeowners. It's a bit of a policy decision about whether that is the right way to go about it. But it's something we should all be aware of when we think about sort of a policy level, is where do we want to be getting our revenue from as a society? Do we want to get it from the wealth, unrealized gains, as you mentioned? Do we want to get it from flowing funds? Do we want to get it from sales taxes? We have a mix, and getting that balance right is, of course, a bit of a challenge. Yeah,
you can just imagine that here in BC, if you're listening from another province, here in BC, our current provincial debt is $13.2 billion, I believe, is our current deficit for this year. Not our debt, but our deficit for this year's budget. And so this homeowners grant would be in a fund that hasn't been increased for a long time. And so since it's not even keeping up with inflation, it's been kind of getting smaller as the dollar relatively devalues. And so they've been just leaving it there. And so we see cost of living going up and cost of homes going up. And so then we see the province pushing more things onto property taxes, which increase the cost of owning a home, while they're arguing that that home ownership is too expensive. So, there's definitely a discussion to be.
Yeah, and I think we did a bit of an episode on that, is making homes more affordable by taxing them. So feel free to check out that episode. I think sort of like our final discussion on this whole topic is, if we are concerned about the level of property taxes, are there things that people can do to sort of mitigate them, or to advocate for lower property taxes? What are some things that might come to mind? I guess maybe starting with, I think maybe we talked a little bit about it, is just disputing your assessment is one way.
Yeah, that's a long process to appeal your assessment, and whether or not you want your assessment to go down. A double-edged sword, back to the comment that I made earlier, that when I sat down with a guy, I talked about his property tax bill. It's a double-edged sword. I think that's a very complicated way to do it. I don't think very many people want their assessments to actually go down. They just want their property taxes to go down, which is easier said than done. What I would recommend, though, is for people to reach out to their local councillor or mayor and see if they'd be up for a coffee, because my experience is, once I sit down with someone and the person sees a councillor or mayor sit down with them and actually go through it, people love to actually feel like they're getting heard. And then, as someone who, you and I are getting into all the meat and potatoes and minutia of this, go through each item on the bill with them, then they have a better understanding. Because I think most people are just out there trying to get their kids to baseball or soccer and pay their bills and get to their jobs and maybe go camping for the weekend or whatever they're trying to do with their lives. Going through their property tax bill is very low on their priority list. And it's difficult to understand all of this. And so if you do find you might have 20 minutes to go for a coffee with a councillor or mayor where you live, see if you can have a coffee with them, because I think you'd feel better and have a better understanding, and it would only cost you maybe an hour of your life to have a better understanding of where all your property taxes go. And it's worth doing. Instead of just kind of paying it kind of begrudgingly and thinking it's out of control, sort of.
Yeah, and whether it's out of control in your community or not, I don't know. Like, I feel like at our council table, we do try our best, and our staff as well, to keep property taxes as reasonable as possible, recognizing that there's a big demand for services that those property taxes pay for. And so then it becomes a matter of, okay, is the community, your city or local government, are the services they're providing the kind of services that you want as a citizen? Because if they are, then you should expect that you're going to pay for them one way or another. And in the case of local government, that's on your property taxes mainly. There are some grants, but that also comes from a different pocket, really, for taxes, because then maybe your income tax. So you do want to make sure, though, that the kind of services you expect from government is maybe from the right government too. Often we run to an issue where people want to have maybe the local government providing a service that is actually more efficient and also jurisdictionally appropriate for the provincial or federal government to do. I haven't had a lot of people ask for us to increase our defense budget in the city of Parksville.
No.
That is federal government responsibility. But we do get people requesting us to do things that are provincial responsibility with local tax dollars, which we can do. But in most cases, and we've generally made the decision at our local council to advocate instead of taxing. So if it's something that's provincial responsibility, we will advocate for the province to step up in our community on those issues so that we don't necessarily have to provide that service to the local government, which we could, but probably less efficient to do so in many cases, and definitely will add to the property taxes.
Yeah, the longer I'm in local government, Joel, it seems that you really want to know whose responsibility is it provincially or federally or the regional district, et cetera, to pay for services. Because if the provincial or federal governments can offload or download any costs to the local government, well, of course they will, because it takes it off of their books. And so here at the local government level, likely across the entire country for FCM and across the province here for UBCM, is we're kind of playing defense, and we're really trying not to take on those costs, because we know that when we take on those costs or services that are beyond what we're legislated to provide for services, that's going to end up on the property tax bill of the people that we've been elected to represent. And then we have these podcasts where we have to explain all of the stuff that is getting dumped onto property taxes beyond what you and I approve at the council table.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a bit of a quick run through property taxes.
Was it quick?
Yeah, not that quick. If you want to sit down with Sean and talk about your property tax,
email Joel Grenz.
No, happy to chat with folks on that who are concerned about their property taxes, because they can be confusing. But the bill simply reflects how layered government is in BC and Canada, in our jurisdiction here. Multiple jurisdictions, multiple decisions, one invoice.
Yeah, thanks so much. Find all our episodes at nonpartisanhacks.com. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. It genuinely helps us reach more people.
Yeah, so with that, we'll call it a wrap on this one. But if you do have a guest suggestion or a good government story or topic you want us to dig into, definitely stop by nonpartisanhacks.com and let us know.
Until next time, take care of yourself and your community.
Ian Lindsay of Lindsay and Associates has played an active role in the local community since 1979. He has been with RE/MAX, Vancouver Island's most advanced real estate business network, since 1996, marketing and selling residential, rural, strata, recreational, investment, and project development real estate. You'll find true real estate professionals at ianlindsay.ca